What is going on, everyone? We are back with another. We're back with. We're ranking. We're ranking the stories within Patient 7. I'm doing this on the whiteboard app because it seems to be the one that works the best, so that's super cool. But yeah, so this is where we're at. Just to remind everybody, if you want everything a week earlier, please sign up to the Patreon. Description. It's links in the description below. And yeah, I'm just super excited to go through and start ranking these with you guys. Don't forget that Patient 7 is over now after this, and has been replaced by the first season of the original Twilight Zone. So that's what's next. Moving on, though. So, ranking this was actually somewhat easy, and we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. That is always the plan when I do ranks. So, starting at the bottom, we're going to start with what I think is the worst story out of all of this. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Maybe too much? No, that should be good. Alright. So, let me zoom out just a smidge. Just a smidge. Is that good? Do we get everything in there? Yeah. Okay. Alright. Very last, number 8. Evaded. So if you watched this with us, or if you went to the walkthrough with us, Evaded suffers from basically just being it's a second zombie story and something that didn't need a second zombie story. And it's just you're supposed to feel bad that this kid's got to take out his mom who's become a zombie, and I don't, because I'm not connected to these characters. This isn't The Walking Dead. Like, does it suck? Like, if you really think about it, does it suck? Absolutely. But it doesn't make me sad. And that's honestly where that fell apart for me. Otherwise, it sucks that it ends up also, by the way, being the very last story. So it ends on kind of a down note as far as stories go. My number 7 is The Visitant, which is the first story. That's right. So the reason I put The Visitant as number 7 is, and it hurts me to put The Visitant at number 7 because it has my favorite actress in the entire movie, and that's Amy Smart. But the CGI that they did for the demon is just, it's bad. And the story, it's like, oh, mom's going crazy and she thinks that the demon's here and I'm going to have to kill my mom to, survive because she's going to accidentally kill me. I don't know. It just didn't click with me. Thankfully, it skyrocketed everything way up from here for me. But specifically just for this, it didn't touch me. Number 6, Undying Love. That was the first zombie movie that I had talked about earlier. And again, as I mentioned, I'm not a big zombie story fan, especially outside of I love The Walking Dead. Don't get me wrong. I have not watched everything from The Walking Dead. I did read a lot of the comics as well. The Walking Dead's a good story. Undying Love is kind of cool because it has this little twist of this guy saves this lady who's being chased by zombies, and then he takes her home and then feeds her to his girlfriend who is a zombie. So he's trying to keep his girlfriend alive, and it was a super fun little twist that I honestly wasn't expecting. And it was a lot of fun. Next up is number 5, Death Scene. And if you were watching along with me, Death Scenes was the one where the guy was hunting vampires. But the reason why this isn't higher is the story isn't being told by the guy hunting vampires in the story. It's being told by somebody who knows the guy hunting the vampires in the story. But what saved it is there's a lot of really cool little moments of like the investigator investigating the guy and being like, yeah, you killed these people this way, and this way, and you're a crazy murderer. And then the guy turns around and he's like, these people were vampires and I killed them this way because that's one way to do it. And these guys were vampires. Now, obviously, it's much more ominous, and I'm just cheesing it up for it. But that's essentially, and then like it makes the cross. He attacks. It was a pretty neat vampire story coming from somebody who does not like vampire stories. Okay. My number 4 is The Sleeping Plot. And again, The Sleeping Plot was the fun one where the little girl was doing everything to raise money to get a shovel to bury her dead friend. And she hustles. She comes up with a swear jar for the parents and gets them to swear enough to put a lot of money into it. And like she's constantly showing off all the things that she's doing to this camera that's sitting there, and you don't realize it until later that she's talking to her dead friend who's hiding, who's been stashed away in the closet. And they make it seem like the way the frame narrative leads into it is like she's telling the story that, like, you know, my friend died and I buried the body because that's what she wanted me to do. But like the little girl that was in the closet had a huge head wound, and the only way that happened is somebody had to have done it, and the only person that knows she's there is the little girl. So it's like, read between the lines. But it was still a lot of fun, and I think deserving of story 4. My number 3 story is the frame narrative. So for those of you that do not know what a frame narrative is, a frame narrative is the story that's surrounding all the little stories throughout a anthology horror movie. Now, not every single anthology horror movie has a frame narrative. If you watched us, which you'll notice once you go through, which I didn't rank it. There is technically a frame narrative, but I didn't include it in the rank for when I originally recorded Bangkok Haunted. You have not seen that yet, the rankings for that. Because there still should be, at this point, one more episode that you guys haven't seen yet. But the reason being is there's just not much of one. But most anthology horror, movie-wise, has a frame narrative. If you remember back to, like, Creepshow, which is one I always go to because it's one I'm super familiar with, the original Creepshow. This kid likes to collect spooky comics. His dad's kind of a jerk. And the kid tries to get rid of his dad by ordering something through the mail from the back of the creepy comic, and it's a lot of fun. So the frame narrative here, though, is this doctor for every patient is getting all the stories, which are all the stories listed here, almost all the stories listed here. And he basically is like super nice to them starting off, or extremely threatening to get them to talk. But then always turns around as a complete dick after the session and is like, okay, yeah, you're crazy. You're going back to being locked up. And then at the end of it, like before the final story, he's looking through the files, starts to walk off, and the entire hospital's a mess as he walks by. As he walks through the hallways, he finds the orderlies who are gone. And as he goes to the orderlies and he's like, all right, he gets them where they're supposed to be, or he didn't get them. I'm sorry, that was stupid. My mind went, but they're gone, and they've been moited, and so he's then knocked unconscious by the lady who finally found her shovel, and wakes up. Is being treated as if he is a vampire. Everybody he had interviewed is surrounding him, and just as he's stabbed with the stake, he wakes up and he's actually one of the guys locked up. And so then he's asked to tell his story by his doctor, which is how we get evaded. And then after that's over, it was just really well done. It was just really well done. A fun little twist that I was not expecting, and that's why it made it so high on this list. My number 2. Anybody that was watching should have known that The Body and Banishing were going to be my 1 and 2, but what order? My number 2 is The Body. This was my favorite for what I felt was at least like half the movie, a little over half of the movie. And it was just about a guy that on Halloween night was carrying a body around in a wrapped up in plastic, and everyone kept trying to help him because they thought it was a Halloween prop and he was on a scavenger hunt or something. And it was such goofy fun, such a fun ending too, where he does end up with one of the girls at the end in the group. Even gets stopped by some fake cops who were just out pretending to be cops. It was just a lot of fun. And lastly, but certainly not least, my number 1 is The Banishing. And I really feel like what really pulled me in here was the little things, the details of the little girl being drugged through the salt. And because evil spirits aren't supposed to be allowed to drag you through the salt. So that tells you, if you're paying real close attention, that the lady that's there is not the evil spirit. And it is just so well done that it is, I think, the best story in this entire thing. And I urge anyone who has not seen it to check it out. So with that being said, guys, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the rankings. My number 1 is Banishing. Number 2 is The Body. 3 is Frame Narrative. 4 is The Sleeping Plot. 5 is Death Scene. 6 is Undying Love. 7 is The Visitant. 8 is Evaded. And yeah. Remember, Patreon if you want everything a week early. This is being now replaced by the very first season of The Twilight Zone. And yeah, that is going to do it, guys. We love you. We'll see you next time. Peace.